One of the things that I learned from playing the Digimon card game is that there's actually quite a large fan base for the 4 Great Dragons archetype, as it's also considered as a fan favorite deck. It is capable of bringing out strong level 6 boss Digimon cards instantly without even the need of digivolving. As most of us would know, level 6 Digimon are pretty much the strongest cards within the game, and it's a core to many winning strategies for many decks. Surely a deck that can play them for free should mean that it must be really good, right? Well, on the contrary, it is quite the opposite because it did, after all, make it in today's episode of Why Nobody Plays. If you guys enjoy the Why Nobody Plays series and want to vote for future episodes just like this one, then be sure to subscribe and keep a lookout on the community tab. Like always, this series is intended to critically analyze decks and archetypes that have a low play rate, including some of the ones that used to be considered as one of the best decks during its prime. We'll take a look at what the cards do, its history, and talk about the issues of how it struggles to establish its win condition and identity in today's format. And of course, I'll always give some of my own opinions and suggestions on how to improve it as well. The 4 Great Dragons include Azulongmon, Magnadramon, Megidramon, and Goldramon. These Digimon were initially introduced throughout the game as individual cards which have nothing to do with each other, and all of that actually has changed until the release of EX3 Dragonic Roar. This set has brought all of them together as a full archetype which mainly runs with a yellow base as its standard. Trial of the 4 Great Dragons is an option card that is incredibly key and to the core that makes the strategy viable because it lets you play one of your 4 Great Dragons from your hand for free with its delay effect. By doing so, each dragon has a different on-play effect where Azulongmon can gain you memory and draw you cards, Magnadramon creates a blanket security -1 or -2 on the opponent's board for an entire turn, Megidramon outright deletes one of your opponent's Digimon that's level 5 and it can potentially scale up to level 6 if it was played via the trial option card. And then of course there is Goldramon, which is the main level 6 boss Digimon that you want to digivolve it with because it can actually cycle back your main option card back from the trash to your hand, and also has when attacking effects that trashes 2 of your opponent's security potentially and can minus 6000 DP to one of your opponent's Digimon, where this card actually does a lot of things by itself. After EX3, there hasn't been much direct support released for this particular archetype all the way until BT14 recently, where we did get a brand new Goldramon. This Goldramon can play out 2 tokens where one of them has blocker and the other has rush. It can even recover your own security when it would leave the battle area as well. Other than the level 6 boss Digimon cards, the archetype also has an entire line of level 3s, 4s, and 5s that serves as a yellow base, and it consists a fair amount of searching power through the level 3s and 4 Digimon cards. Godflame is another option card which provides a bit of smaller removal with DP reduction, but also lets you grab the Trials of the 4 Great Dragons option from your trash to your hand as well. The main playstyle of this deck is to climb through your Digivolution stack towards your level 5s, which are Azulongmon and AVAULT, where both of them actually lets you place a Trial of the 4 Great Dragons option card from your hand into the battle area for free. But keep in mind that both these effects do mention that it's placing in the battle area, therefore you don't get its main effect of drawing 1. But by doing so, you're then able to use its delay effect the turn after it was placed to play any of the 4 Great Dragons from your hand, and depending on which ones you have access to, you can play it for different situations and scenarios to establish different advantages. Overall, the game plan is actually very solid and pretty consistent since you have 2 different level 5s that can help you achieve this stage of the game. Once you have used the trial option card to play any of your 4 Great Dragons, it will be deleted by the end of the opponent's turn. For the most part, this isn't much of an issue because you have already established its advantage with its on-play effect by then already, and most of them actually have a on-deletion effect that lets you cycle back the trial option card and place it back into the battle area for free when it is deleted. But the only stipulation is that you cannot have one existing in the battle area to begin with, which means you can only really have one at a time. But that's not all. The level 4s of the deck being Goldramon and Digimon gives rush to your 4 Great Dragons with their inherited effects, so you can actually make attacks the same time when you play those 4 Great Dragons, ideally to chip away your opponent's security during the mid-game stages. Eventually, your opponent should be down to 2 or fewer security, where you also have set up Azulongmon, Megidramon, and Magnadramon so that you can go into Goldramon to utilize its when digivolving and when attacking effects to secure the primary win con as you return the 3 other dragons from the trash back into your deck. It might seem obvious, but Floodgate rookies that prevent players from playing Digimon via effects can be fairly problematic for this particular deck since its entire strategy revolves around the trial option card to let you play things for free. but since you have built-in removal with DP reduction when it comes to Azulongmon, it's actually fairly easy to deal with it at times, which I think is also a very good built-in counter. For those who are interested and want to see my most current build, this is what I'm actually working on, and it utilizes the Patamon and Yellow Vaccine engine as well, just because the yellow core base that you're playing for the 4 Great Dragons mainly are vaccine traits which have a lot of great synergy and can turbo digivolve through your stack very quickly, which is intended to help it keep up with the speed. And if you guys have any ideas and suggestions to further improve it, be sure to comment down below and share your thoughts with everyone else. If you want to see early deck lists like these where I make constant updates to some of the builds that I work on, or even deck lists that I work on before I post the actual videos, then be sure to join the AVAULT Club as well. Like I mentioned before, in theory, the deck has a very solid game plan and should have all the resources it needs to achieve the win condition reliably and consistently. We can also agree that the concept and idea of the deck plays very uniquely with its mechanics and has some really cool, awesome combos. But unfortunately, that was not the case when I translated it into actual practice because the deck saw little to almost no play within the competitive setting. This makes me wonder as well, what actually happened and why is this the case as we talk about some of the issues that it actually has. It's actually kind of hard to identify its weaknesses at first, but there are some complications that kind of prevent it from succeeding, especially when it comes to a competitive setting. But the unfortunate thing is that we don't even see this deck play at a local level as we talk about what the issues are. The number one factor that I think is that most effects are restricted to the player of not already having a copy of the Trials of the Great Dragon on the board prior to be able to place one for free. With this particular limitation within itself, it only really lets you play one 4 Great Dragon at a time turn after turn, which is one of the biggest factors that slows this down greatly so that it can't even achieve its win condition on time. The other sub-issue that is related to this is that most of these effects actually tell you to place the trial option card rather than playing it. Although not as a huge deal, it would have been nicer if you're able to draw a card anyways to utilize its main effect, and there wouldn't be too much harm done if they let you play it instead. Recursion in this deck is great because you're able to grab the Trials option card back from your trash to your hand, or some effects even allow you to place it back into the battle area. But for playtesting, I did realize that this wasn't enough to keep up with the pace of the meta just because it takes a lot of turns to set it up over and over again. Which is why, again, I feel like that most of these effects should really let you play the option cards instead so that it can be a little bit faster than it currently is. Most effects are rather reactive in this deck, which is actually not a problem and is actually relatively good because it provides you the control and you can actually slow down the opponent's win condition so that they can't take you down as quickly, especially when it comes to Magnadramon and Megidramon. However, there's only one issue. Just because it's control doesn't necessarily mean it's helping you speed up the win condition, which this deck really lacks. I even think the EX3 Goldramon effect is incredibly good as it has potential to become one of the best level 6s out there simply because it can trash 2 of the opponent's security. But the only issue is that it takes a long time for it to set it up, especially requiring to have all the other 3 dragons. And the only thing that's holding it back is actually the core engine, which I think needs to be improved in that aspect, which doesn't warrant an entire new line or design for it either. So this is where I'm going to put in some of my suggestions on how to improve it. Like I mentioned with most of the effects earlier, that there really shouldn't be a requirement of you not having the trial option card present at the time in order to place another one. Therefore, I feel like you should be able to place more than one at a time with these effects to help you speed up the process a bit more. I don't think it's too overpowered if the player can set up multiple of them at a time for free with the effects since they have delay anyways. This actually gives us a very good opportunity to talk about some future cards that are upcoming with Goldramon X and Dragon's Breath because these will be available in BT16, and that's exactly one of my biggest suggestions on how I think more of the cards within the archetype for future design should no longer have that restriction moving forward. The fact that Goldramon X also gains the effects of all Goldramon underneath its Digivolution card is a huge win, and I'm definitely excited to see how that deck improves, and I'll definitely be working on an updated build when the time comes too. To tackle some of the other problems which I mentioned, being able to trash cards from your hand or top of the deck to set up dragons faster in the trash would be very beneficial to help Goldramon's effect. An example could be having a Black War Growlmon that is yellow and purple because it can digivolve along with the yellow base line so that it's able to trash cards from hand, or also considered as a prior evolution of Megidramon. Speaking of Megidramon, there's actually also a X antibody version of Megidramon itself, and we haven't even got a card for that just yet. So it can contain some kind of effect that allows you to place the trial option card directly back from trash to the battle area with no stipulations, probably with its on deletion effect too, could be really cool. This next take might be a little bit too much, but we can perhaps even see a new option card that is somewhat similar to Trials of the 4 Great Dragons, which lets you play a 4 Great Dragon from your trash specifically for free when digivolving or something like that. The other exciting thing that I'm looking forward to is that since the 4 Great Dragons have their own separate archetypes outside of this particular one, such as Magnadramon being part of the entire Salamon and Gatomon and sort of Azulongmon line, Azulongmon being alongside with the 4 Great Sovereigns, and Megidramon being related to Gallantmon and Chaos Gallantmon and all that such, we can expect to see more future support where cards we can utilize from those archetypes and splash them in between each other, which would be really cool to see. So with that being said, if you haven't seen the last episode of Why Nobody Plays with Agumon Bond of Bravery, then be sure to watch it right now. Don't forget to subscribe, turn on that notification bell to stay tuned for newer episodes on the series, and as always, thank you so much for watching. You guys have a great day, great night, wherever you are. See you next video, and this is AVAULT signing